Video game controllers truly are the harbingers of crime in a virtual world. Whether you're committing mass genocide on an international level or just some good old-fashioned family-friendly carjacking, that lump of plastic in the palm of your hands is your instrument for civil annihilation. However, some of the cranially challenged out there seem to think these devices of chaos have equal effect in the real world. But don't just take my word for it. Here's an exemplification of said dickheads. February 2009, a 42-year-old debt collector from Samambaia, Brazil, becomes increasingly furious that a 60-year-old female debtor is not taking his threat seriously and repaying her arrears in a timely manner, so decides to up the ante by purchasing a gun. However, being incompetent at his job, he cannot afford a real weapon, so does what he assumes is the next best thing, sawing off the cable to his son's Sega Master System light phaser and intimidating the woman with that instead. The situation immediately goes tits up, resulting in a 10-hour standoff with the local armed forces. Luckily, after negotiating with police, no one is hurt. 1 year later, the debt collector would be awarded a Guinness Book of Record for world's longest police standoff using a video game peripheral. 9 years later, December 2018. 30-year-old Matthew McCall of Hermitage, Pennsylvania decides to hold up his local First National for some good old-fashioned bank robbery. Again, being low on funds and common sense for a genuine weapon, chooses to hold the place up with an NES zapper. Surprisingly, even David himself isn't stupid enough to believe anyone would accept a 33-year-old Nintendo light gun was a legitimate firearm. So, using his Mensa-like levels of ingenuity, establishes that wrapping the phaser up in black duct tape would make it more plausible, and tries his luck by pointing it at the nearest teller in the vicinity. Unfortunately for Matthew, aside from pistols not normally being wrapped in cloth-based pressure-sensitive tape, the bank teller also notices that the weapon aimed at them also protrudes a bright orange in a plastic cylinder, bringing them to the conclusion that Mr. McCall is indeed full of shit, and proceeds to press the emergency button. Panicking and realising that the gig is up, McCall grabs whatever amount of money is laying on the counter and promptly legs it. Matthew is arrested several hours later, after police discover him hiding in a local shopping plaza, as public areas littered with dozens of security cameras are the ideal place to lay low after committing mass felony. And this wouldn't be the last time some genius decided to use Nintendo's fictional mallard murdering peripheral of choice for armed robbery. 6 years later, May 30th, 2023, 25-year-old David Joseph D'Alessandro of Sharon, South Carolina, decided to hold up his local Quick Stop for a quick buck. But, being low on funds, again resorts to rob the store with an NES zapper. However, even David isn't stupid enough to realise people wouldn't believe it's fake, so this time sprays it black. Yes, that's good enough. He then proceeds to wear a mask and wig to complete the Captain N cosplay look. Mr. D'Alessandro does indeed manage to convince the minimum wage staff that he is the evil personification of the Game Master, and successfully manages to deprive the store of $300. David drives to a nearby Dollar General parking lot to count his ill-gotten gains, where he is promptly recognised and arrested by a passing police officer. Or possibly one of Mother Brain's minions in disguise. For some, however, the sheer firepower of a small plastic 1980s UV light-emitting pistol just isn't intimidating enough for their intended victim. And that's when you need to bring in something substantially more idiotic. April 19th, 2011. 20-year-old Cameron Pittman of St. Petersburg, Florida, strapped for cash, decides to rob his local Subway, a multinational fast food chain renowned, by Pittman at least, for their safes full of gold and other highly valuable monetary possessions. His weapon of choice? A PlayStation 3 controller, protruding through his pocket in a vague attempt at looking sort of, but not, gun-shaped. Literally, his finger would have made for a more convincing weapon. However, armed against staff-wielding, high-sugar acquiescent footlongs, Cameron is no match for the staff at a fast food sandwich joint who could see through Pittman's devious plan and is laughed out of the building. Feeling unabashed, Mr. Pittman feels this tactic may work a second time, this time heading for his local convenience store. Being the NASA rocket science candidate that he is, Cameron decides to try this tactic the exact same moment a police officer is walking into the store. Realising that the slightly boomerang-shaped controller was probably likely to come second best against a heavily armed member of Florida's finest. So Pittman immediately surrenders, dropping his PlayStation 3 controller to the ground. Luckily, it was also a pre-DualShock PS3 controller. Otherwise, who knows what else Mr. Pittman could have fired off that day. So, you're probably thinking by now, with these increasingly ludicrous weapons, did anyone actually ever manage to get away with it? Yes, they did. Well, sort of, but more by complete luck, and even more stupidity that led to their downfall. June 2009, Osceola County, Florida. 21-year-old Brandon A. Hill walks into a 7-Eleven heavily armed with a sawn-off Xbox Juke controller. Somehow, Mr. Hill managed to convince the store clerk that a giant, slightly uncomfortable to hold lump of black plastic that looks bugger all like a genuine weapon was the genuine firearm, and deprives the 7-Eleven company of $200. That, or maybe he threatened to throw it at him. In fact, the only reason the police discovered that Mr. Hill was brandishing an unpopular Microsoft peripheral so soon was because the getaway vehicle of choice for young Brandon was a bicycle, so was immediately apprehended. Now, all the criminals we've had so far, despite being utter morons, have had some modicum of success in their robberies, just through their sheer tenacity. However, our final contender today is at a whole new level of stupid, to the point you'd be amazed that they even have the intelligence to remember to breathe. February 2013, Horsham, West Sussex, England. Teenager Cameron Manning, feeling particularly poor and smooth-brained that day, feels that the best way to earn some money is to rob his local newsagent. So, Mr. Manning brazenly walks up to the shopkeeper, demanding they open the tills armed only with a PlayStation 3 Move controller. Although firearms aren't a usually common occurrence within the United Kingdom, the shopkeeper was adverse enough in the world of projection weaponry to realise that guns aren't normally bright red, made of plastic, and have a giant white rubber ball protruding from the end of them. So, spends the next few minutes pondering if they're being pranked before realising no, they're not, and promptly pressing the panic alarm. Now, if this story was to end here, it would be pretty daft in its own right, but it gets much worse. You see, a normal criminal might not want to cause heat so close to his place of residence so they can lay low for a while, but not our Cameron. Being either too lazy or too thick, decides his target should be the store literally opposite his house. And if Cameron wasn't stupid enough, he not only wore a bandana over his face that was so thin you could see right through it, he was also a frequent customer, going there since he was a child. To the point, the shopkeeper was good friends with his mother. In fact, the shopkeeper and his mother had known each other for so long, the two of them even went to school together. So, after realising that Cameron wasn't pissing about, the shopkeeper immediately pressed the silent alarm button. Manning left the store empty-handed, looting only the shopkeeper's regards to his mother, and ran back to his house on the opposite side of the street, where he was arrested 30 minutes later. Hello you. Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and until next time friends, I'm missing you already.